another one, man. You know what I'm saying? Definitely finna go into this one. Man, criminal activity in America, man. Episode 3. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Flight MH370 went missing. People boarded the plane and they never got synced again. How can that happen? How could that be? So we finna look into it and trying to see like what's going on. Like, and this ain't even in America. This ain't even happening in America. But this something that's this something that probably affected the whole world. So we're gonna go into it.
Just been hell on earth.
I ain't gonna say probably affected the whole world. This did affect the whole world. It's affecting me right now. Just knowing that this is possible.
We've been waiting for nearly 8 years.
Why do you think the story still resonates after so much time?
The largest, longest, most mysterious event in aviation history.
Is this the biggest break we've had?
It's a game changer. That puts the plane where we think the point of impact was.
This is it.
It's massive.
That is a key that will help us unlock this mystery.
We've got to give it a red hot go.
Absolutely, we would stand ready to assist as we're asked.
If that doesn't say we need to search again, I don't know what does.
We've been investigating the disappearance of flight MH370 for several years now. In 2020, we brought you the groundbreaking report, The Untold Story. Now, nearly 8 years after it went missing, there's been another breakthrough, and potentially a major one. The precise location of the aircraft. Surely now we owe it to...
Now I thought all aircrafts had like black boxes where they should be able to they like GPS locators or GPS trackers where they should be able to track these planes and know where they at all times. How could a plane filled with so many people go missing for years? That's wild. A plane filled up with people and they all just go missing. The plane never get found and the people just like, how is that even, how is that even a thing? How can that even happen? We finna find out.
The families for there to be one final search.
I think I'm gonna do a special title for this one called Criminal Activity Abroad.
It's overwhelming to think that something so simple could actually solve this mystery nearly 8 years on. And it's heartbreaking for us, but the fact that something has come about and it is so promising, we have to hold on to that because that's all we've got is hope.
I mean, I haven't heard anything about no family members coming out, like nobody raising any type of hell about their family members being missing or anything like that. So, I mean, this kind of something that's real life, like suspect.
Why do you think it's so important, Mike, to find it, to go again?
If for nothing else, for the next of kin, we need to put this to bed. The only reason to keep looking is to find the flight reporter. An aircraft has gone missing and we don't know why.
Former Qantas captain Mike Glynn is on a mission. He wants another search launched for the plane, and he believes he knows how to find it. WSPR
Whisper, yeah.
may help us discover where MH370 is.
There's a good chance, yes. I think so.
Whisper is a network of weak radio signals that covers the globe. It's led to the creation of a revolutionary new tracking technology using the most unlikely of sources, amateur or ham radios.
A ham radio is an amateur radio operator using long-range radios.
And what's their purpose?
They talk to each other
Around the world.
around the world.
They're looking at aircraft. This one's here, this one's there.
Well, they're not even looking at aircraft. They're just talking to each other. They're logging who can talk to them and all this sort of thing. This whole idea about tracking aircraft was a very recent development.
With input from Captain Mike Glenn, British aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey developed the program. And this is how it works. Ham operators send out signals to see how far they travel. When it's received by another operator, it's logged into the Whisper database. Records go back to 2009. Where does MH3...
So if you got all these logs about locations, about, each probably time frame, where it's at, where it's going, where it's at, all that, how does a plane just disappear?
370 fit in?
Well, people started thinking maybe with the knowledge that when aircraft pass through these links between these two stations, that sometimes they change the signal and that can be picked up.
These signals act like tripwires. If an aircraft flies through them, they can then be tracked. And it's precise. The signals are sent out every 2 minutes. This has now...
Every 2 minutes it's being tracked. So that means soon as it goes off that navigation where it's going, because it's going through where it's going to be tracked at. So as soon as it go off that navigation, it should be detected that it's off course, right?
Led to a much more detailed flight path for MH370, and more importantly, its final resting place.
So, if it's telling them right here, this plane went down somewhere in the Indian Ocean, why hasn't it been found yet? Or did that black box go down in the Indian Ocean and that plane went somewhere else?
It's the biggest breakthrough for a long time, right?
It's massive. It's massive. And look, it's something we've been waiting for nearly 8 years.
I'm guessing they just found this information out.
And, there has been a hiatus with COVID, and which we understand, but it's also given, these experts...
I don't understand how they just found this information out, though, if, this is a live flight that's going on that's supposed to make it to a destination, and it never gets there, and it's obviously just showing. If you tracked every 2 minutes, that means y'all know it's not at where it's supposed to be at in 30 minutes or 40 minutes. So how does it take y'all 8 years down the road to realize that it went down in the Indian Ocean? How?
It's time to go back, sit down, run the numbers. It's connect the dots at this point. It really just blew my mind. It was, have we found it? This is it. This is what we need.
Potentially, this is huge.
Potentially very much so. Yes, I'd say it's a game changer because it introduces a whole new way of thinking about what actually happened.
To understand what happened, we need to go back to the beginning, to the launch pad of our investigation into MH370. In the history of aviation, there's never been a mystery like Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It's so significant that that flight number, MH370, is known by most people. It was a modern passenger aircraft that took off from this runway in Kuala Lumpur on the 8th of March 2014 and simply vanished from the radars with its pilots, its crew and its passengers on board.
Vanished. I just need to know, has this ever happened before? I'm thinking maybe yes.
Even today, no one knows where it is, but much more is known about what happened, the alleged cover-ups, the investigative failures, and the possible motives of a pilot in command. It was business as usual at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Not the planes on the tarmac or the passengers in the terminal. Among those passing through security, Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah, followed by First Officer Fareeq Hamid, the pilots of MH370. One a junior, the other a veteran.
He has been flying on 777 as a captain since 1998, and he has clocked well over 16,000 flight hours, so a very senior captain.
MH370 was 777. It's a pretty decent aircraft.
So there's a lot of aircraft.
So Captain Zahari Shah, he was on a very good airline in very good plane.
Yeah, and he was a type-rated examiner too, so he's at the top of the tree.
So a pretty powerful position for him to be in.
And very trusted.
He had a lot of sway.
Yeah.
Cool, I need some money, cool.
At 12:42 in the morning, local time, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 left the runway.
Good night, Malaysia 370 were the last words heard from anyone on that flight. And at the same time,
Wow, the last thing that anybody heard on that flight was good night, MH370.
the plane disappeared from radar screens.
The aircraft was supposed to land in Beijing at 6:30 a.m.
So were you still hoping that MH370 would still arrive in Beijing?
Yes.
6:30 a.m. in Beijing, when the plane should have landed, delayed, flashed on the arrivals board. Panic sets in.
Wow.
The last point of contact was over the South China Sea. So
they just showed the family members in the airport. Devastated. Man, bro. Man, bro, I can only imagine, like, the feeling of that. You going to pick up your family member from the airport and news come out that the plane is lost. And you like, probably like, man, no. And you get there, it's 6:13 or whatever, the flight supposed to land. The flight ain't never come. It's something ain't right. It's what can they tell a family member? What can they tell a family about that? What can they say?
that's where a search was launched.
I heard about the disappearance. It's 15 hours after it happened. I was up in Bangkok at the time.
Mike Glenn was flying back to Australia just after MH370 went missing. His flight took him over the South China Sea.
When I got there, the there is a feature of the Gulf of Thailand where there are fishing boats, the entire length of the Gulf of Thailand. And you can see them at night time. It's one of the great sights in aviation. But there's just this vast number of fishing boats there, and I'm going, there's no way an aircraft could crash here without being seen. There's absolutely no chance.
239 lives feared lost, including 6 Australian.
Australia's Prime Minister at the time was Tony Abbott.
I rang the Malaysian Prime Minister and I offered Australian assistance. At that stage, we thought that the plane had disappeared somewhere in the South China Sea.
But MH370 wasn't in the South China Sea.
So in 2014, even though it crashed in the ocean or whatever, they didn't have floating devices or anything for planes or nothing? I mean, if it crashed, it ain't gonna be no floating device that's gonna do nothing for that, I guess. It depends on how it crashed, though. Was it a controllable type crash malfunction, or was it just a straight drop?
Primary radar records and Air Force data reveal when communication was lost, the plane turns back to Malaysia and flies for several more hours.
We are reassessing.
So if the plane turned around to come back, maybe the pilots figured that it was something that wasn't right.
The redeployment of our assets.
When MH370 crosses from Malaysian to Vietnamese airspace, there's a catalogue of errors by air traffic controllers from both countries. At the same time, the plane's communications equipment was turned off.
That means you're not visible on civilian
So there was logging errors by both countries' aviation systems or departments. And also the plane communication systems was cut off. If that don't sound like some criminal activity, that's, bro.
radar. And essentially, if you're not visible on civilian radar, nobody can see where you are.
Data showed once the plane flew across the Malay Peninsula, it turned around the island of Penang, headed up the Malacca Strait, and across the Andaman Sea. It was even seen on military radar, but no one acted.
So where is this plane going? Where is these pilots going? They didn't cut off their communications. They didn't cut off GPS systems and all that. Where is they taking these people?
They had the opportunity when the Malaysian military tracked this plane for an hour. They did not scramble a jet to go and see what was going on. They could have saved us 8 years of pain and suffering. They didn't do that.
I think that.
Why would they not do that? Why would they not send a jet? If this plane is off track and not being tracked no more and they cut off communications and all that, why would the government not send a jet to go see what's going on with this plane?
The initial response by the Malaysian government was, shall we say, it took them a while to get organised.
There is this system which not even pilots knew about until MH370, which is that although we turned off all these systems you could turn off, there's one which emits via satellite data from engine performance. And the way it works is that, in this case, about every hour, there's a satellite handshake. The aircraft will send a signal to the satellite with data on it, and the satellite will respond, but then transfer that data to a ground station, in this case, It was actually in Perth in Western Australia.
Every hour, MH.
So whoever thought they cut the tracking, the communication devices off in the plane, they actually didn't really kill they didn't really kill the old GPS system. It was still being tracked every hour instead of every 2 minutes. My question is, where are these pilots flying these, where are they going with the plane? It's people on this flight. They not going to Japan where they supposed to go. Wherever they supposed to go, they didn't go there. They going somewhere else. They try to cut communications off. That's like me going somewhere and trying to cut my phone off so you won't know where I'm going. What's the reason for that? That's wild.
370 is flying, satellites pick up an automated ping from the engines. So the plane is clocked until one final handshake on what's known as the seventh arc.
That seventh handshake produced a band, which is an arc, and that's where the science suggests the aircraft would be somewhere on that arc, but we don't know where on the arc.
Data stopped as the...
So that means that plane that went in phases, that GPS that every hour GPS tracking can detect it to that seventh arc. So that's the farthest it can go. So they're expecting that it gotta be there. But the whole time it went somewhere else. It's going somewhere else. They don't even know where it's going.
The plane crossed the seventh.
It's these pilots is flying this plane though. So these pilots is accessory to whatever's going on. Think about that shit, man. That shit wow.
Arc, which means that's where MH370 ended its journey. The wreckage is somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean, and as we'll soon reveal, a potential crash site has finally been discovered.
So this plane then went all the way off track somewhere in the Indian Ocean. I don't have a map or a globe to show you how far off that is from where it was supposed to go. But obviously it was way far off track. For it to crash in the ocean? So you tell me these pilots flew all the way off track to crash in the ocean? Or did they fly off track to land in the ocean and something else then went down? Come on, man. This shit wild.
If there was anything down there, we will find it. We owe it to the families of those people to do no less.
It would become the biggest search in history, led by former Air Chief Marshal Sir Angus Houston.
Here's this jet, on the most reliable jets flying, 777. It disappears, and you have loved ones aboard. Well, what happened? Well, we don't know what happened. Where is it? We don't know where it is. We're searching, we're using everything that's available to us, but we can't find it.
How does this happen in 2014? How does a plane go missing in 2014? 2014. 8 years ago. They saying they don't know where it's at. Come on, man. That shit crazy, man.
Wouldn't it be extraordinary if, after all this time, after all the money that's been spent, after the biggest search in history, that it was a bloke with a ham radio who might have found it?
Oh gosh, I know, and I think about that, and it's just been hell on earth living in this, surreal world of this plane going missing. And, at the end of the day, yes, it's been a long time, but at least people have still been looking. That's the big thing.
Think about the family members, though. Think about the family for a second, though. Your mom was on that flight. Your auntie was on that flight. Your cousin was on that flight. Your grandma, your brother, your sister, your daughter, your son. And they just gone forever. They just gone. We don't even know if they're alive. We don't know nothing.
We first met Danica Weeks.
They on a flight though. Come on, this is mind blowing. This is mind blowing.
2 years ago. She clearly remembered how she found out that her husband was missing. Not from Malaysian Airways, but from a reporter.
I got a call from a lady in New Zealand and she asked for Paul. And I said, oh, no, sorry, look, he's on a plane to Beijing at the moment. And she said, so you don't know?
So I guess that plane was going to Beijing, not Japan.
And I said, well, no. And she goes, there's been an incident with the plane. Sorry.
Why would this lady call his wife acting for him? Knowing that she sounded like she knew that he was on the plane already. You didn't know? That's wild.
You're now to raise your glasses and join me in a toast to my beautiful bride, Danica.
Paul Weeks wasn't meant to be on MH370. He was on his way to Mongolia to work in a copper mine. First stop, an induction course in Beijing. This is a home video of Paul with his 2 young sons the day before he left.
At first, he was booked on Cathay Pacific, and it was only a day and a half before he got on the flight that it changed to Malaysian Airlines.
What was the last thing he said to you?
When he was heading off to Mongolia, he said, look, I can't wear my wedding ring and watch on site. Obviously, they're not allowed to.
Why do you ask him what was the last thing he said to you? Why do these news people want to know all of the most intimate, the most shit like that? Like, that should be something that she should keep to herself. The last thing her husband said to her before, that was the last thing he said to her. And they ask questions like that. What was the last thing he said to you?
Working with big machinery. And he said, so I want you to keep my wedding ring and watch and give the ring to the first son that gets married and the watch to the second son. And I said, oh, don't be stupid. You know, you're going to be fine. You'll go there and come back.
That's crazy. Her husband was basically telling her, if anything happened to me, give my jewels to my sons, or, you know.
And the watch to the second son. And I said, oh, don't be stupid. You know, you're going to be fine. You'll go there and come back.
That.
For her to have that conversation with him and him to say that, then for her to end up having to probably do that, that's wild.
Was 8 years ago. 8 long years of not knowing what happened to her husband. 8 years of not knowing where he is. 8 years of hoping that one day she will finally know. Now there is hope. A potential crash site. We've spoken about this in the past, haven't we? These kind of moments of false hope that...
This is wild, man. This is wild. Flight go missing. Family members don't know what's going on. They don't know where their family members at. All they can say is we looking for 8 years. It's 365 days in a year. For 8 years, they just keep, we looking. I'm pretty sure you can scan, with all these planes and everything they can scan the whole world in half a year. They can look over everything with all the technology.
Come along the way where, oh, maybe it's found, no, it's not found. Maybe it's found, no, it's not found. And here we are again. So how does this one compare?
Well, yes, we've, along the way,
Maybe it's found, maybe it's not found. Maybe it's found, maybe it's not found. So what are y'all finding that y'all think that it's this? What are y'all finding? We all saying that we might have found something.
We have, been through so much. It's been a real roller coaster of hope and dashed hopes. And so I made sure that I read through this and understood it before I put any energy into it. And everything I've...
Imagine going to your deathbed not knowing what happened to your family member who was on that flight. Your mama, daddy, brother, sister, son, daughter, cousin, friend. Imagine just getting old and getting older and getting older, and you just like, damn, what the fuck happened to what's called it? Every time you think about that shit just blow your mind, and you want answers.
read is just so amazing.
I think about that every day.
And it's just what we've wanted. I get goosebumps. I'm excited. I know
What can you do though? Nowadays, this is 2014. This wasn't too long ago. When people, family members couldn't do nothing to do nothing. They couldn't do nothing. They couldn't protest the airline and none of that. It didn't matter if they tried to.
It's crazy to say, but we've just never felt so close. And the time has been there to really get this information and trace this plane. And I feel that this is it.
Coming up.
When you ditch a 175-ton airplane, that's a massive impact.
The plane most likely would have flown further south.
Are you inclined to believe that?
There is credence to this new theory.
He must have been talking with someone. It's just a complete cover-up.
For them to even start talking like cover up and all that, it's like, bro, like what type of sinister activity is going on?
Part of what forms the whole MH370 mystery are all the wild conspiracy theories about what might have happened to it. All you need to do is look online to see some of the more colourful explanations. That it's in the Cambodian jungle, or was sucked into a black hole. Maybe even the Russians have got it. But experts, citing real-life examples, have narrowed it down to a handful of likely scenarios. All of them end up in the same place. How it got there is what divides opinion.
I want to know, like, who was on that plane. I want to know each passenger and what was their job description. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Like, I think all that matters. Like,
My theory is what's always been is that it was the captain who was responsible. It was done probably as a political protest.
Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah was politically active and a distant relative of Anwar Ibrahim, the country's opposition leader, who was convicted of sodomy a day before the doomed flight.
He was said to be quite upset by that verdict.
what? Let's rewind that, man.
Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah was politically active.
Did y'all just hear what I just heard?
My theory is what's always been is that it was the captain who was responsible. It was done probably as a political protest.
Captain Zahari Ahmed...
He just said the captain of this flight, the pilot, might have did this as a political protest because of one of his friends was listening.
Shah was politically active and a distant relative of Anwar Ibrahim, the country's...
A distant relative of N.Y. Ibrahim. Let me rewind this and let y'all just listen.
As a political protest. My theory is what's always been is that it was the captain that was responsible. It was done probably as a political protest.
Captain Zaharie Ahmed Shah was politically active and a distant relative of Anwar Ibrahim, the country's opposition leader, who was convicted of sodomy a day before the doomed flight.
He was said to be quite upset.
A day before this flight, this happened, his longtime distant relative was convicted of sodomy, and he was mad about that. The captain of this flight, the pilot.
By that verdict. Now, he was active in the party, but again, there's no claim of responsibility in any of this. But that's one lead. Again, would it be enough for him to take such drastic action without saying he did it? Difficult to say.
If you go through Zaharie's Facebook posts, very politically active, very anti-government, so there's a case to be made there.
How is a pilot able to be anti-government on social media and he's able to fly people? How is that possible? How is he able to be responsible for all these lives and he's anti-government, anti... So you telling me this pilot who was mad about a verdict from for his distant relative flew a bunch of people somewhere off track and crashed the plane or something? Committed suicide? Or what did he do? Did he take the plane to the ocean and what did he do? This is some wild shit. This sound like when in Breaking Bad, when that flight, when his daughter died in Breaking Bad, and he worked in aviation, and he had made them planes crash into each other because he was messed up about his daughter. This remind me of that, but it's not like that because it's totally different. But it's just the fact that how they got control over so many lives. And they can do that. They can.
Captain Zaharie was a 53-year-old pilot with 18,000 flying hours. He was a married father of 3 adult children and a grandfather, known as Ari to his friends and Uncle Ari to his many nieces and nephews.
Hi everyone, this is a YouTube video that I made as a community service.
In his downtime, Captain Zaharie also made videos for his own YouTube channel. In the background here is his home flight simulator. Is it possible that he hijacked the plane and killed those people?
I absolutely don't agree with that.
Why?
I don't see him as a person who could do that.
How not? How do you don't see a person who could do that if he was personally the one who was the most capable of doing it?
But the just-released whisper tracking of the plane suggests otherwise, using ham radio signals to detail MH370's flight path. It raises the possibility that politics may have been involved in the plane's disappearance.
So he's come up, followed the coast of Sumatra, the east coast and the north coast, down the west coast of Sumatra, and this is the really interesting thing. That is a holding point or a holding pattern.
According to the Whisper flight path, at 12 minutes past 3 in the morning, 2.5 hours after takeoff, MH370 went into a holding pattern. How can you tell that?
Because
there's a loop
of the shape. If you see it larger.
Wow.
So it's a 22-minute holding pattern.
Wow.
There's no reason to do that.
And you have to be manned to do that.
Normal aviation, you'd think so, yeah.
So it seems like he was just flying around and staying in one spot for 20 or so minutes. To me, that seemed like he was trying to crash. He was trying to crash with another flight.
There's been a holding pattern that's basically accounted for some 22 minutes of flying.
Yes.
Which would take it off the previous endpoint.
Reduce the distance it could go south.
And this is all according to Whisper.
Yes.
Only the plane's flight recorder will tell us if MH370 did go into a holding pattern. What do you think was going on for those 22 minutes?
Possible negotiation between maybe someone on the ground acting in concert with Captain Zahari, who I believe was responsible. And I think you've got to take into account that his political hero, Anwar Ibrahim, was locked up 5 hours before they left. If I had to speculate, I would say there's a negotiation going on there. You have a new election, you resign, telling maybe Najib that he needs to resign. So that's a possibility.
The data points on the Whisper technology that's come through shows that there was a 22-minute holding pattern that was undertaken by the plane. How did you react to that?
It was overwhelming, really, because what were they doing in that 22 minutes? And was there negotiations with the pilot? We should be told about it. We should know what happened in those 22 minutes.
So 22-minute holding pattern, basically it says holding pattern. In aviation, holding is a maneuver designed to delay an aircraft already in flight while keeping it within a specified airspace. Like I said, he was basically flying around in circles for like 20 minutes. They think he was negotiating because it was a political move. He was trying to get his homie freed or something like that. But I think he was trying to crash that plane with another flight, or he might have been negotiating, trying to get somebody to do something that he wanted them to do, threatening them that he'll, do whatever with the plane,
Were the passengers even alive then? Maybe they were, maybe they weren't.
Who knows? Was there an onboard fight with the pilots and the passengers? Was it another September 11th? I don't know. But 22 minutes is a long time to be going around in circles. He must have been talking with someone.
I think the pilot had complete control of the passengers because they don't know what's going on. They really don't even know where they at. They just know they in the sky and they trying to get to where they going. So he probably telling them, look, we experiencing some turbulence. We got to stay right here for a second or whatever the case may be. It's easy they in the air, they under his control. So they can't do nothing. They not finna get up and raise no type of nothing because they in the air. What they gonna do? Die? That's what it seemed like. That's what happened. Rest in peace to all them people on that flight, man. That's messed up how this pilot can do that.
A complete cover-up.
If that holding pattern was not there, let's say, the plane most likely would have flown further south. So that holding pattern actually then puts the plane where we think, from the oceanographic evidence, where the point of impact was.
Authorities had initially identified a 120,000 square kilometre search area, but they never had an exact spot for where the plane came down. Now there's been a major development in this long-running mystery. Two separate sources have identified the same crash site. A precise location, 33.177 degrees south, 95.300 degrees east. Are you inclined to believe that? Or have you got another point in mind?
I've seen no reason to disbelieve it.
Whisper, is this the biggest break we've had in a while?
It's the only game in town. It really is. There's nothing else happening. I think it's been shown from the tests that we did that it can be used for this, and I think we've got to give it a red hot go. The potential search site is actually not that big. It could be done in a few weeks.
How does it affect the eventual crash site?
It brings it further north, and it brings it to the area that Professor Cherry of the University of Western Australia said should be looked at.
That professor was on the money.
Yes.
From the early days.
Very much so.
Chari Pattiarachi is one of the world's leading oceanographers. He's also a professor at the University of Western Australia. Analysing ocean currents and drift patterns, Professor Chari has come up with a crash site that is nearly identical to the Whisper coordinates. So, Professor, after all this time, when it comes to where the wreckage of MH370 is, you might have been right all along.
Well, we have been right all the way wrong. We were right to say where the debris may end up in the flaperon. We were the first people to tell where that debris would end up in. So we were right there, and then we were right again now.
The site is 1,933 kilometres west of Perth, more than 4,000 metres underwater. It's mountainous seabed known as Broken Ridge. Despite making this finding just 6 months after MH370 went missing, the professor was never invited to take part in Australia's search efforts.
Why would they not let the man who found out where the plane could be and really been knew, why would they not let him join the search party? It seemed like a lot of just, you know.
Why on earth didn't they ask you to be part of the process in the beginning, Professor?
It's very hard for me to answer that. They said that they didn't know I existed, which is probably not correct. But there are lots of contractual things that goes on in, as you know, in government organizations.
They appear foolish now.
Oh, absolutely.
That was, I think, the turning point for me when I realised that it was in the same spot that he had identified many years ago.
I'm trying to think, what would the government contracts or anything have to do with searching? So what are they saying? They can't, that money is not going to be used to pay him to do any work? Their money has to be put to a certain, it's already contracted out to search parties or whatever? We just got to take your information and give it to them and let them do their job now?
And I think that's what gave it ground for me, that I think this is it. It backed it up. It's not just, pie in the sky stuff. It's, there's a lot of other theories or, positions where it could be. But this one we have two, and if that doesn't say we need to search again, then I don't know what does.
Is Whisper credible? Certainly Whisper's credible. The inventor received a Nobel Prize for his work, so it is credible. Whether it's credible to track an aircraft and over these distances is yet to be determined. But it could be. Well, there will be a key there one day. Something will help us unlock it.
Angus Mitchell is the new head of the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, the agency involved in Australia's original search mission.
You can see the plane is certainly well within the Australian search area and to the northern end of it.
MH370 had essentially become a cold case for Australian authorities. But in another major development for the doomed flight, the ATSB is now taking another look at it, based on the Whisper report.
One of the things we have done, and it really is in the emergence of this new theory, was to, because it puts the aircraft in an area that we have already searched. So I guess me coming in with a due diligence and a new set of eyes, we are undertaking a review of the data that we hold there.
8 years ago, there was no suggestion of Zahari putting MH370 into a holding pattern. But as we discovered in 2020, there were high-level discussions about the captain going on between Canberra and Kuala Lumpur just days after the plane vanished.
My understanding, my very clear understanding from the very top levels of the Malaysian government is that from very, very early on here, they thought it was murder-suicide by the pilot.
They said that to you?
I'm not going to say who said what to whom, but let me reiterate, I want to be absolutely crystal clear. It was understood at the highest levels that this was almost certainly murder-suicide by the pilot, mass murder-suicide by the pilot.
How long after the plane disappeared?
So they already really knowing what's going on. They already knew the pilot did it. That's crazy. Mass murder, suicide. That's wild, man. Nobody got nothing to do with his political views. They just trying to go where they going.
Did that information become clear to you?
Within a matter of a week or so.
Despite this revelation, the Malaysians refused to name or blame Zahari.
I wish to be very clear. We are still investigating all possibilities as to what caused MH370 to deviate from its original flight path.
In 2018, Malaysia released its final report.
The team is unable to determine the real cause for the disappearance of the MH370.
That's wild. They saying they're unable to determine the real cause of the disappearance of it, even though the real evidence of it is flapping them right in their face. Because they don't want to be responsible. They can easily just say, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. So we don't owe the family nothing. We don't know.
Again, no mention of Zahari, despite Tony Abbott being told it was murder-suicide. What was the reasoning that the Malaysians gave you?
Well, it was crystal clear to me that they had a very clear understanding that this almost certainly was what had happened.
If that's true, then that would have to point to some kind of cover-up.
Look, that's not my assumption at all. And I've read all these stories that the...
It sounds like a cover-up all the way around.
The Malaysians allegedly didn't want the murder-suicide theory pursued because they were embarrassed about one of their pilots doing this. I have no reason to accept that.
I also met with the Malaysian Prime Minister's wife a month after this happened in Perth, and she alluded to the fact that she believed that the pilot had taken the plane. Now, I got threats on Facebook about how dare you say that, that didn't happen, you know, you're putting words in her mouth. And then for our Prime Minister to come in and say he knew, just fuming, absolutely fuming. Because what were we waiting for? What were we hanging our hearts out on every day? Every day we'd wake up saying, is today the day they're going to find them? And here's the Prime Minister sitting there knowing, and the Malaysian government knowing, that it was a murder-suicide by the pilot.
That's wild. That's wild. They ain't even telling the family what's going on. They knew what happened that week, that day. They knew what happened. And they led the family on for all this time. Telling them, we don't know. But now the secret's out.
So what was it all for?
Do you still have that feeling when you wake up in the morning? Is today the day they find them?
No, not so much now, because we're not searching. But it's more of, are they going to find a spot to search again that's going to be enough to push the Malaysian government to search again?
They stopped searching for the people. Man, so imagine that your family member's gone, they ain't even searching for them, and it ain't like you can go get a dive team. You can. You can go get your bread up and become a billionaire and create and do something. It's possible. But the fact that you can't depend on the government to do that.
8 years since they went missing, there's been just one certainty about the fate of the 239 passengers and crew. It's the debris from the plane that's been found washed ashore, a sad testament to a tragic end for flight MH370.
When you ditch a 175-ton aeroplane into a 4-metre swell at 250 kilometres an hour, it's going to break up. It's probably going to break a wing off. It's certainly going to break over the fuselage. I mean, that's a massive impact.
Following the stricken flight, it was Professor Chari who successfully mapped out the locations for much of the debris that's been so far recovered. Well, how many pieces?
I feel like this BS, man. This debris don't look like, man, this BS. I feel like this just them just giving the world and the family something. We go scatter a bunch of debris around, and then we go back and pick it up. You know what I'm saying? A year later, and say, "Hey, look, we found some parts of the plane. This is where it's at."
Of the wreckage have now been found, Professor, because of your help.
In total, there has been 33 pieces of debris that has been found. Have not been confirmed to be MH370, but most likely would have originated from MH370. And 23 of them we have accurately predicted.
So basically, your information is good.
Yeah, we have confidence in that, obviously.
Was it a mistake not to have Chari Pattiaratchi?
They didn't have him part because he was a black man. That's how I feel, you know what I'm saying? He's an older black man, you know what I'm saying? And they didn't want him to look like he was the smartest one out of all them the big professional people that's supposed to know how to,
On the team from the get-go?
I think you're asking questions of me that occurred 5 years before I joined the agency. I do know at the time there were experts from Boeing, from Inmarsat, from the DST, from the CSIRO, from Geoscience. This was not a case of a couple of people sitting making assumptions.
Could you use him now?
Well, I guess we need to wait and see whether or not there is credence to this new theory. And then it will be something for the Malaysian government to consider if we reach to that point and there is a request to Australia. So there's a long road ahead of us before we even consider something like that.
Yeah, a long road before we ever consider using his help. Even though he's the one who been knew years ago where the plane could have been at. And he ended up being right. according to some of the things that they found in that area.
If the wreckage is found, what is it going to be amongst?
Well, we are talking at water depths about 4,000 to 5,000 meters, so 4 or 5 kilometers down. And it is a very rugged, with lots of mountains, if you like, underwater mountains, volcanoes, big cliffs, ravines, etc. So we're in an area which is very close to the edge of what is called Broken Ridge, and that's a 1,000-kilometer underwater mountain range. Very, very rugged.
You said underwater mountains? I mean, you go so far deep underwater that it's like a whole nother like how there's mountains out here. It's like that underwater. So it's like is that a place that was like this and then happened to just be underwater over time? That's something to think about.
What goes through your mind when you think that Paul might be in amongst all of that, his remains?
Look, over the years, I really hope to be able to bring him home and have something, to bring home for us. I'm just happy now after 8 years to know where he is. That would bring me some peace, because there is no peace. So just to know that he is in this spot, whether we recover the plane or not, we just need to know. Finding something and knowing where they are will give us a step towards that peace.
Coming up.
It was a considerable search zone. It's the largest in history.
And what that's proved is where the aircraft is not, we know the truth.
They knew what they were telling the press very early on was incorrect.
In your heart of hearts, do you think it will be found?
I do think it will be found.
I think this pilot knew where to take this plane to where it'd be hard for them to find it.
Byron, it's now been 8 years.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? And we're still no closer to the truth now.
Well, we are. We know the truth. It's not a mystery.
That's your truth.
No. If the Malaysian Prime Minister tells the Australian Prime Minister 4 days after the event there was murder, suicide, and that ties into all the evidence that deleted.
4 days after the event, they knew.
Practice flight plan. That's the truth. Not some theory.
We rule out a ghost flight.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
No.
In 2014, the then Transport Minister and the Australian Transport Safety Bureau based their search on what's known as a ghost flight or death dive. That assumes that the pilot is dead, and that's why the plane crashed.
Left engine shut down.
2 years ago, in a 777 simulator, a plane he used to fly, the former Emirates captain put us into a death dive.
570 knots. That's about 1,000 kilometres an hour. This is going to hurt.
The plane's design meant it would corkscrew, increasing speed until it plunged into the ocean.
So you can see the sea coming up. Oh, I hate the visuals.
That's it. So that's a big crash.
Horrendous. You would have exploded into millions of...
The man just really didn't want to see that, and it was only a simulation. This is an older guy. He like 60 some years old. This was a simulation of a plane crashing into an ocean, and he couldn't even look at it.
Bits. To this day, Byron Bailey maintains the search zone was wrong. That's because he says it wasn't a death dive. Instead, he believes Captain Zahari was alive and glided the plane as far as possible south. That puts Byron's crash site below the search zone.
All the evidence points to the fact it was ditched, and I'm sure the captain, brilliant captain as he was, brilliant pilot, was trying to ditch the aircraft in as far south, remote location as possible.
My concern in this case, for those who say that the aircraft crashed in a so-called ghosted flight, they made up their minds near the start that this occurred. So they're looking for supporting evidence all the way along the line to collaborate that part.
See, I don't think they know if it's a murder suicide, or they don't really know if these people even if they alive still or what. They don't even know. They don't know, but he done took them somewhere so far where it's like I guess they can't be alive.
Sometimes it's convenient to turn your back on something as far as governments are concerned.
What are you referring to there?
Countries are very protective about their own organisations, airlines, reputations, etc.
Why would Malaysia not want it found?
For lots of reasons. Their initial response was botched. They...
Big time.
Big time. They knew what they were telling the press very early on was incorrect.
Even Tony Abbott told us that his conversations with the Malaysian leader, he knew it was murder-suicide from the beginning.
Yeah, and that's very embarrassing, particularly if it's done for a political reason.
The fact that there may well be a mass murder event by a Muslim pilot.
Yep. Yeah.
That comes into thinking, perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah. Yeah, that's very embarrassing too. It goes against the whole narrative of the country, really.
So they don't want it to be looked at as like a terrorist attack, I guess.
Has your theory changed at all over the years?
No.
Not even a little bit?
No.
We're in cruise at 39,000 feet.
Back in 2020, Byron showed me what he thinks happened to MH370.
Hello? Engine's running now. Looks like we have flamed out.
Byron believes Zahari was still alive and still in control of MH370 right to the end.
Okay, I'll start the flare now. Then we hit the water. We are deep.
So do you know where it is?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Latitude 3910 southeast 8818.
If Byron's right, this is it. Just outside the search zone.
That's very specific.
Yep.
What if you're wrong?
Well, let's just say the ATSB, as part of their searching 40 miles either side of the arc, came within about 30 kilometres of where we reckon the aeroplane ditched. If I'm wrong, then it means the aeroplane's probably been taken by aliens or is sitting in a hangar somewhere in Kazakhstan.
Byron Bailey's crash site is 920 kilometres southwest of the Whisper crash site. That's about an hour's flying time in a 777 jet.
Byron Bailey, he has been a critic of the ATSB for a long time now. His view is that the crash site was always in the southern part of the search zone, just outside it, as a matter of fact. Is he wrong?
As I said, there are a number of theories here. All of them do have elements of truth, and all of them do have elements of evidence attached to them. Until we find the plane, until we can decode, in the event that we can find it and decode what's on board there, those are questions that are going to remain unanswered.
It seems like they don't even want to find it. Like, It seems like everybody can throw their ideas at them, but it's like they don't really want to go look.
Part of the problem is that people say, well, it's north. Well, no, it's east. No, it's south. Which one do you choose?
Well, that's right, and that's why when they undertook this search, it was looking at the totality of information, and it was using the best expertise around the globe that they had at the time, with the technology they had at the time, to make the best assessment of where the plane most likely went in, and then that search zone expanded, and it was a considerable search zone. It's the largest in history.
And they've already searched 250,000 square kilometres over 4 years, and what that's proved is where the aircraft is not. We know where it is. There's never been an accident.
Nearly 8 years on, and Byron Bailey is as passionate as ever about MH370. So much so that he's pushing for an inquest.
238 people were murdered.
Including Australians.
Yeah, 6 Australian. And I wrote requesting a coronial inquest. And after much prodding, a reply came back saying, we have sent the request to the Department of Justice, Attorney General's Department for consideration and analysis. Well, what do they know about aviation? Anyway, eventually the reply came back after Tony Abbott had mentioned about the murder-suicide in the 2020 documentary. And the reply said, we need further information. So I said, but isn't the fact that a former Prime Minister says there was murder-suicide committed, isn't that enough information? Never heard another word.
You're quite obsessed with this case, it's fair to say.
Oh, yes, absolutely, because...
Why don't you give up?
No, I'm backed by a lot of people worldwide egging me on, saying, keep going, we need the search to be restarted. That's why I'm here. We want the search restarted.
You need to restart that search, man. You need to find out where these people at, man.
In that small area that the Australian Transport Safety Bureau refused to go that little bit further south when they could.
Okay, so just track the rest of the journey after the 22-minute holding pattern.
The Whisper flight path also reveals another possibility about the intentions of Zahari. It shows that at one stage, MH370 was headed towards Geraldton in Western Australia.
And this may fit in with other narratives, that maybe the aircraft they were thinking of going to Australia, land there and request maybe political asylum. So this point here is where the aircraft is tracking direct to a point that was found on Captain Zahari's simulator.
7 days after it went missing, Malaysian police found on Captain Zahari's flight simulator practice runs to the southern Indian Ocean. This just 1 month before the doomed flight.
What?
The discovery wasn't made public until it was leaked 18 months later.
So he had practice runs going to where they think the plane at?
Now, the significance of that is that there's nowhere to land anywhere near where that track took it at the end. There are no islands, there's nothing. And so by processing that flight on his flight simulator, he was practicing what could only be a suicide murder flight.
And in a sad postscript to the MH370 mystery, in 2020, Ian Higgins also went missing. The author and journalist with the Australian newspaper hasn't been seen since. It's believed there are no suspicious circumstances.
Wow, so the dude who was speaking about it, the journalist for it, ended up going missing himself? And they don't think it was no foul play? So they think he just wanted to disappear? Man, that's crazy.
When we last caught up with Danica Weeks, there was a new man in her life, John.
Man, to wrap this up though, man, I'm just figuring out why they only had like one family member of like one person that was on the flight though. Like why they ain't had nobody else talking? It was 200 and some people on that flight. Y'all can get one family member. Like what other family members at? Like I don't know, bro. It seems like it's a bunch of weird activity going on, man. I don't know, but man, God bless all them souls on that flight though, man. Y'all make sure y'all share, like, subscribe, hit that notification, all that good stuff, man.